In today's episode, we will be learning about the Canadian Teachers Federation Project Overseas. Our guests today are Beverly Park, the Director of the International and Social Justice Program, as well as Program Officers Wes Delph and Sandy Plamondon. The Canadian Teachers Federation promotes and supports quality, inclusive, publicly funded public education in all its forms. They uphold teaching as a profession and advocate for adequate resourcing, labor rights, and social justice across Canada and around the world. Firstly, thank you to the three of you for being here today and for taking time to speak about Project Overseas. So my first question is, how did Project Overseas come to be?
Well, I'll take that question. Project Overseas actually started in 1962, so 60 years ago.
Wow.
And two people, there was a woman, Ruth Banks from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and Clark MacDonald from Port Arthur, Ontario, went to Nigeria in the summer of 1962 upon request and assisted them with an in-service program. The next year, just 1 year later, 1963, 18 people participated in two countries. And since those two initial years, it has continued to evolve and expand ever since, really. The last time the program was offered in 2019, so pre-COVID, we actually had 59 participants, 14 teams in 11 countries.
Wow.
And yeah, it's grown, it evolves, the countries change sometimes. But one thing I want to mention, so it's changed over the years, but it's always been identified as CTF's flagship program.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say, however, is that we recognize, appreciate, and always acknowledge the fact that it's our member organizations like QPAT who funds this program, and it's your members who participate. It's not the staff of the CTF, it's teachers from our Canadian member organizations. Just out of interest, Julie, over the years, QPAT has had 60 participants.
Wow.
And they've taken part in 72 programs. So obviously there was a bit of overlap. And over the many years, the 60 years, there have been over 3,000 different projects and over 2,200 different participants.
Wow, isn't that amazing? When you look at the numbers like that, I mean, 60 years is a long time, but that is remarkable. It's a lot to be proud of, certainly. And when you mention QPAT, it makes me very proud of all the QPAT members who've taken the time, to participate. And you're right, the fact that these teachers are learning from other teachers, that's the richness of the program. Really, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
And so if a teacher is interested in participating in Project Overseas, what does the process look like?
I'll take this one, Julie. Thank you. Excellent question. So in order to participate in Project Overseas, a teacher must be a member of QPAT, have a Canadian passport that is valid until at least July 2024, a valid teaching certificate, and at least 5 years of experience teaching in Canada by the end of the school year. Okay. The teacher also needs to be in excellent health, as the project will be in developing country conditions. The teacher must also have high standards of professionalism, personal conduct, be flexible and mature, and also be willing to put the team and the project needs first. So PO, or Project Overseas, is a volunteer experience. All travel, living, and administrative expenses are covered by the CTF-FCE and its member organizations. As a result, no salaries are paid to participants. And the experience is all about Canadian teachers working with overseas colleagues to plan and deliver professional development workshops for teachers and education workers. So interested teachers should visit the QPAT website for additional information to find the application form and deadlines. And all applications are reviewed by QPAT first before the selected teacher's application is forwarded to the CTF-FCE. Finally, the CTF-FCE builds teams based on the needs of the overseas partner organizations, and the successful applicants are notified of their project placement in February. So that's more or less the process that we use.
And when you say the teams, that's really interesting. So I'm assuming you look at maybe the interests of the teachers and the things that they're perhaps, their vested interests, and you try to build something according to whatever the needs are.
Yes, exactly. We look at their experience, their language, and we try to match their strengths to the partner organization's needs.
And you would know a thing or two about this, about the whole application process, I believe.
Indeed.
Yes, because Sandy is a former QPAT member who has participated in Project Overseas. And well, I like to think, lo and behold, thanks to all of that, the rich experience that you experienced, that now you work at CTF in this.
Yes, I was privileged to be selected by QPAT 3 times. Wow. 2 times I went to Togo, and 1 time I went to Haiti, and yes, it's an amazing learning experience for the local teachers in the country where we go, but also for us as Canadian teachers.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm going to ask you more about that later, because I want to hear about your experiences. But first, I'd like to know a little bit more maybe about the major aspects of Project Overseas, a bit of an overview.
Yeah, I can take that, Julie. So the first aspect would be preparation. So once you are informed that you have been placed on a team, should you be successful, the preparations begin. And those preparations are spread out from February all the way through to July. So we try not to overwhelm the participants as they prepare for their experiences. There are also orientation sessions with CTF-FCE staff, the 3 of us, and perhaps others as well. The team leader orientation typically takes place in February, and a full orientation with all participants coming to Ottawa typically takes place in July prior to departure. Okay. In addition to that, there will be video conferences. Those are used for team building for just the team themselves. And then sometimes the 3 of us as program staff will intervene in those video conferences as well to deliver some key messages and provide some important information. So once all of that is done and the preparations are done and people go in country with their teams, there is, of course, the teaching component, right? So that team building all takes place, the preparations happen, you arrive in country, and then the first thing that you would do is co-planning. So with the local co-facilitators who have been identified by the host teacher organization, there's some last minute program planning that will take place to make sure that everything is ready to go. And then once the workshops begin that you're delivering in partnership with the local organization, the co-facilitation will happen. And you'll hear the word co a lot because it really is a partnership between the CTF-FCE, the Canadian teachers, and the local teachers in the host organization. And then as you're doing that facilitation from day to day, there will, of course, be some fine tuning, right? Some of the plans might need tweaking, making some changes, adding some things. And that's, of course, always based on the needs of the participants in the program. In addition to the teaching component, there is also a cultural component. It's not as explicit, but I would say that it's just as important because all participants in Project Overseas, of course, are ambassadors for their own organization, such as QPAT. They are ambassadors for the CTF-FCE, and they are Canadian ambassadors too. So as Sandy mentioned, we do expect a certain degree of professionalism. And that cultural exchange is really an important component of the program. And depending on the destination and the partner organization, that cultural component could be woven into the experience in many, many, many different ways. So a little bit further on that, it is expected and anticipated, and of course it happens, that all participants do build some kind of relationship with their local partners. They are working with a local co-facilitator, of course, and will have many more interactions with local teachers and the people from the host teacher union. And so there as well, there's some professionalism that is expected, emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence. And one thing that we really would like everybody to understand is that the host organization does take care of the Canadians from the minute they arrive in country all the way through to their departure. So that's an aspect that is very important that our partner organizations take very, very seriously. All participants are also supported, of course, by the CTF-FCE, and that flows through the team leader. That comes from the 3 of us as program officers who will be attached to each team, depending on the country that they go to. And the entire CTF-FCE, of course, is behind the program and supports the whole program, including all of the participants. And the last thing that we want to mention here is that as all teachers are in a developing country with conditions that are very different from those here at home in Canada, of course, while every measure will be taken to ensure their safety and security, participants are also personally responsible for exercising good judgment and making sound decisions. And then the last aspect, of course, is coming home. So once the participants do arrive back in Canada, there are some expectations, providing feedback about their experiences, and perhaps if they have some ideas, making recommendations for the future of Project Overseas. We take that very seriously, and we always take participant feedback into account when we're looking forward to the next year of Project Overseas. And the CTF-FCE will also check in with participants once they get back on home soil, because we are with all of them before, during, and after the entire experience.
I think that's amazing, and that's probably a huge component of it. Probably people would feel, oh, if I do this, will I be left on my own? Am I going to be, but you're really talking about teams and constant support. And I think that that's probably very reassuring to teachers who participate, you know, to know that they're safe, they're supported, and that they have people they can turn to, you know, whenever, for whatever reason. That's so
absolutely.
Yeah. And if you'd be so kind, the three of you, because I know you've all participated in Project Overseas, I would love to hear about some of your experiences with this.
I'll start again, only because my experience was, if you can believe this, my experience with Project Overseas was 1994.
Wow.
So many years ago, and I was on a project in Tanzania. We were a team of 6, and there were people from Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and I at the time was representing Newfoundland and Labrador Teachers Association, which was my home organization. So typically, even today, that it will be true that there will be a mixture on the team of different provincial or territorial participants. So that has remained the same. What is different is that it will be very unlikely for us to have a team of 6 now. More typically, you have teams of 3, 4, and occasionally 5. I think we sent 2 teams of 5 to Uganda last time in 2019, but that will be considered a large team. It was a wonderful experience, but I will say that back in 1994, if you can imagine this, there was no internet, there was no Zoom, there was no opportunity for us to connect as a team like this and get to know each other and see each other's faces, unless we literally wrote letters. So my team of 6 people really only met when we came to Ottawa, just prior to leaving for our destination, which was Tanzania. So we were lucky in that we got along well, and we were mature, and we, overcame some of the little glitches that 6 people living together who don't know one another can come upon. But that is a major difference between then and now. Now, as we're doing today, the team leader can bring her team or his team members together. They can get to know one another. They can already do some team building, problem solving, if you will. And I wouldn't say it's happens all the time, but they can also connect with the partner organization, depending on internet, etc., and availability and time zones. But in essence, some things have changed and evolved over time. The essence of the program, which is a teacher from Canada working alongside a teacher from the host country, the destination, that's very much the way it was then. And what I would say is, no matter where you go, no matter what team you're assigned to, it's an individual experience as well. And it's up to you to give to it, to get from it, and to make of it what you will. And it can be a life-changing experience. Some people have actually said that, and it can be wonderful, but that's really up to the individual to embrace it and make the most of it.
That's amazing. So 1994, and here you are today. That's a huge accomplishment. You must be very.
I was like 12, okay?
That's what I was gonna say. You were a student. Whoa. Very, very interesting. How about for Sandy and Wes? How about yourselves?
Thank you, Julie. I'll start and I'll share my experience on the planning part of Project Overseas, and Wes will share his experience, but more on the in terms of delivery of the workshops and the cultural aspect of Project Overseas. So as I said earlier, I was privileged to participate in Project Overseas 3 times, and you will see some pictures on screen. In 2014, QPAT sent my application to the CTF-FCE, and I was selected to participate as a team member for the Togo project. I was again selected in 2018 and 2019 to be the team leader for projects in Haiti and in Togo. So upon arriving in country, the Canadian team works with overseas colleagues to plan the professional development workshops for teachers and education for workers that will be given in the following days or weeks. And for all projects, our mandate is to offer joint strategies for classroom management, special education, assessment and evaluation, for example. And the planning sessions are always very useful for all involved. Local co-instructors share lots of information about the local realities in the classroom so that together with their Canadian teammates, we can deliver ideas and strategies that are sensitive and realistic to the local context. Also considerate of the number of students in the classrooms, the resources available, challenges faced by the teachers, the students, their families, etc.
Many
So that's a little bit a summary of what the planning sessions look like when Canadian teachers arrive in country. Now Wes will talk about the delivery of the workshops and the cultural aspect of Project Overseas. Over to you, Wes.
Thanks. So just so people are aware, through my teacher organization, which was ETFO, I was in the classroom for 25 years in Ontario. I participated in 4 Project Overseas projects. I was very fortunate. 2005 to Grenada, 2010 to Liberia, and then as a team leader in both 2011 and 2016 to Burkina Faso. And I'm sure that Sandy would agree, each experience is unique, valuable, and still remains very vivid, right? So just as Sandy addressed, when you arrive, the first stage is the co-planning with your local counterparts, but then you move on to the co-facilitating, right, with the workshop participants present. And we really are insistent that you're not presenting for, you're not presenting to, right, but you're presenting with. You and the co-facilitator, the local co-facilitator, really complement each other, right? And that's because our approach to development cooperation is not imposing. It involves increasing the capacity of the host organization, of the co-facilitators that you're planning and delivering with, and the local teacher participants, and that's always based on their needs. And that really is a key part of our program.
A lot of thought and a lot of respect I can see is put into this. Yeah.
Absolutely, right. And then the cultural piece that goes along with it. And as I said earlier, it's not quite as explicit, but it's equally important. And that cultural piece can take on many forms. While you're interacting with your co-facilitators, while you're interacting with the participants, when it's the weekend perhaps, and the participants are on a break, you're still on, but in many different ways. And so that cultural learning takes very many forms, sometimes learning some of the local language, trying different foods, or learning about all of those cultural differences that there are between Canada and all of these destinations, these developing countries where we work. And just on a final note, when it comes to the program, gender equity is a very important part of what we do. It is one of the pillars of the work that we do internationally. And there will always be a locally relevant workshop on gender equity rooted in local context and based on local needs. And the same thing goes for unionism. This is equally an important part of what we do. The CTF-FCE, of course, believes in the defense of democracy as a means of change for the better and of social justice. And so teacher unions across the planet are a large part of this. So there is always a locally relevant workshop on unionism as well. And again, based on the needs of the partner organization.
Indeed. Well, I really want to sincerely thank the three of you for the work that you do. I have no doubt that you're making a huge difference for teachers around the world. So thank you for this work. And it's wonderful to know that people who've participated and who've lived it are the ones who are overseeing this. So this is wonderful. Thank you so much for the time you've given us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.